Hi there, hello, this is me, it's Moscow here, and this is Leedsista Libre, the podcast where I go into the archives and find something that I wrote at the time when the time was interesting and bring it to you now in the hope of interesting you in something from a different time. This one follows on quite easily and quickly from the last episode where we were at Villa Park when Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds United were coming back to beat Aston Villa. This is the game from Boxing Day, a few days after that, when we did the same sort of thing to Blackburn, but in very different ways. Joe Rothwell gets a mention in this. It's always nice to see him again. Nothing more complicated about this than that, so I will wish you as happy a Boxing Day as you have been having a Christmas, or better if Christmas wasn't all that great, and remind you that Leedsista.com is the place to go for the new things that I'm writing about, because we are living in interesting times now, even if they're maybe not quite as interesting as they were when Marcelo Bielsa was here, but we can hope. Merry Boxing Day, keep having a cool Yule, enjoy this. Boxing Day is always weird. With Christmas Day over, you're given a day to recover, but often the 29th can feel listless. Once you're over the excess you afforded yourself between the Queen's speech and whenever you fell asleep, the day becomes frustrating when doing nothing melts into having nothing to do. Then, here come Leeds United. Marcelo Bielsa let his players open our present early. No Leeds fan could have asked for more than the euphoria of Sunday's second half at Villa Park, sending us top for Christmas. Except, obviously, we did. By 3 p.m. on Boxing Day, the adrenaline was out of our system, replaced by various types of alcohol, topped off with cherries in an expectation cocktail. That was then, and this is now. We go again, and we demand again. It was a big ask, and for most of the match against Blackburn Rovers, it looked like more than Leeds United could answer. Aston Villa shaped the previous game by scoring 2 early goals and giving United 2 options: give up or fight back into the game. This time, Leeds were in control from the start, keeping an almost ridiculous 75% of possession to themselves in the first half, meaning a much more open-ended task. Try to score. Try to score, but also try to establish a story. Sometimes when Leeds are in control but not in a predicament, they can seem at a loss to know what to do with the ball. There was space through Blackburn's midfield, but it closed up on the edge of their penalty area. With routes blocked, Leeds turned back and Blackburn started pressing high enough to tread on Bailey Peacock-Farrell's toes. United were comfortable enough for Pontus Jansson to amuse himself with Cruyff turns and back heels near his own goal and some thundering challenges nearer to Blackburn's, but they were flourishes in search of substance. Taking the lead according to schedule just after the half hour ought to have given Leeds the direction they needed. It was an obtuse sort of goal, scored when Jack Harrison was sent into the box because Barry Douglas and Pablo Hernandez turned some good possession into good utility. Harrison crossed and Derek Williams fired past his own goalkeeper. The plot now was keeping the lead, but 100 seconds into the second half, a reckless tackle by Luke Ayling gave Rovers a penalty that they used to equalise, and the match settled back into its previous routine, with Leeds in charge but out of inspiration, even after Jack Clarke replaced a better-than-usual Harrison and started swapping wings with Gianni Alioski. For a while thoughts drifted to the recently departed ghost who was quickly forgotten this Christmas, Samu Saiz. Throughout autumn and winter, Saiz kept arriving from the bench to turn constant possession into constant danger against beleaguered defenders who were never happy to see him. I would have been happy to see him against Blackburn, taking over as Enganche from Pablo Hernandez, who could go and be crafty and wise on the wings in support of Saiz's erratic individuality. But only Lewis Baker was warming up, making Saiz's absence the melted snowman of our winter. It was not Saiz Leeds were missing, though, but drama. With 2 minutes left, Calvin Phillips was tricked into the sort of naive defending that can afflict a midfielder at centre-half. Spotting Joe Rothwell advancing towards the penalty area, Phillips sprinted forward to meet him, either tripping him or doing enough for the referee to think he had. Charlie Mulgrew, who beat Peacock-Farrell from 12 yards to equalise, now beat him from 30 yards, curving his free kick around the wall where naivety begat naivety, Peacock-Farrell's palms tipping the ball inside his post rather than outside. Mulgrew gave Blackburn the lead with 50 seconds remaining, but he also gave Leeds a reason to be. I'm not saying Leeds United's winner was scripted from that moment. Okay, that's exactly what I'm saying. It took 100 seconds for Leeds, with no choice but to follow the script now placed in front of them, a dramatic story of rescue and daring, to equalise, thanks in part to Jansen's necessary presence in Blackburn's 6-yard box. He headed across at goal and it was saved. Hernandez fired the ball back across goal and it was saved. Kemar Roof headed again and it was saved, but behind the line. It's unusual enough for a team to come back from going behind in the 89th minute, let alone for it to come through 3 saved efforts, and that might have done. But that's not what the script said, and Roof's stern lack of celebration showed that Leeds were determined to use every second of the 4 minutes of added time to be heroes. Again. I guess it's an open question how often you can be a hero, but the Rocky franchise tests the limits, and so do Leeds United and Kemar Roof. As the clock ticked past 93 minutes and 59 seconds, Roof was no longer holding back on his celebrations because he'd just put a clean header on Hernandez's cross, and the Rovers goalkeeper didn't stand a chance of keeping the ball out of the Kop-end goal. It was difficult to keep the Leeds players out of the Kop-end fans, and difficult to keep Gaetano Berardi, watching from beside the tunnel, from partying all the way from the bench to a police cell. Bielsa called for peace, making placating gestures to Rovers manager Tony Mowbray, but it was like apologising for an erupting volcano. It wasn't his fault, and it was pointless trying to stop it. 7 consecutive wins for the first time since 2007 certainly is Bielsa's fault, and a number of other heroes beside him. Saiz contributed, then left. Pat Bamford won a game, then was injured. Roof persistently scores winners while we wait for him to lose his place. Pontus Jansson showed the effort this is taking, sprinting around the pitch like a maniac after Roof scored, until he joined in with the Blackburn players lying flat on their backs, no longer able to cope. Joy takes a toll, and Marcelo Bielsa was asked afterwards about heart attacks. When you change the destiny of the game in the last seconds, he said, you have to take into account that hazard. Quite. And Leeds United have to take into account that they can't play every game like this. Can they? And they can't win every match between now and the end of the season. Can they? And they have to win some games without veering so recklessly towards defeat. Don't they? And they need to find inspiration in mundanity rather than only responding when heroism is forced upon them by dire circumstance. Don't they? They'll have to find a way to manage expectations so that crowds don't turn up to every game expecting such absurd drama. Won't they? Those questions contain a lot of common sense, but 2018, from its first day to its last, has rarely been sensible at Elland Road. There's one match left this year to discover how absurd this team can get this year. In football, you can have emotions that can reach a high level, Bielsa said after the game, and that's why nothing is comparable to football regarding emotions. And it's why nothing right now can compare to Leeds United, a team that needs to find a story to find its best, a team that has a story now that is almost impossible to believe. Almost.